To set the stage for the conference and help us all better understand how the energy world is changing, I'm really delighted that the Right Honourable Michael Fallon is here with us today. He's been a Member of Parliament since 1997. In March, he was appointed Minister of State for Energy in the Department of Energy and Climate Change. This is evidently a man who felt like he was not busy enough because he accepted this assignment on top of his service as Minister of State for Business and Enterprise in the Department of Business, Innovation and Skills, a position he assumed in September 2012. And prior to that was a senior member of the Treasury Select Committee, Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party. So the Minister will make brief remarks, and then he and I are going to have a conversation on stage. I'll open with a few questions, but again, I encourage all of you to provide me with questions that we can pose to him. So please join me in welcoming the Right Honourable Michael Fallon.
Jason, thank you very much. I am very pleased to participate here in this London launch event for Columbia University's Centre on Global Energy Policy. I couldn't really think of a better time for a centre like this to be launched. The next 2 decades will see global energy consumption increase substantially, driven by the rapid expansion of the Asian economies, bringing more and more competition for energy resources. Global supply is at the same time undergoing a quiet revolution as technological developments bring new resources on stream and the map of global energy production becomes ever more diffuse. And alongside that, we have the need to grow our energy systems in a way that is compatible with the challenges of climate change, driving a range of low-carbon technologies to become ever more affordable. So there are certainly no shortage of challenging issues on which the Centre can provide valuable support to the international energy community. I'd like to talk very briefly, if I may, about our strategy for working internationally to help us ensure domestic energy security in the UK, to ensure access to the energy imports we need at stable and affordable prices, and to ensure necessary investment in our energy sector. Let me say a word first on our current dependence on international energy markets. We are committed to reducing our greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2050. Our energy policies need to lead the way, including through reducing energy demand and promoting low-carbon energy sources. Many of you will be familiar with our current work on electricity market reform, the Green Deal and smart meters, just to highlight a few examples. But even with all those efforts, UK oil and gas import dependency is set to rise, due, of course, to declining North Sea oil and gas reserves, though I need to keep stressing the considerable investment opportunities that still remain in the North Sea. For oil, we became a net importer in 2006. In 2012, our oil import dependence stood at 36%, up from 24% the previous year. By 2020, oil imports are expected to rise to 43%. And even with our 80% greenhouse gas reduction goals, we're likely to be importing more oil in 2050 than we do today. And that is against a predicted slight decrease in UK oil demand to 2030. For gas, we became a net importer back in 2004. In 2012, our gas import dependency stood at 49%. By 2020, that's likely to rise to 56%. While the long-term picture for gas is harder to predict, it will remain an important element of our energy mix for decades to come. Unconventional gas production here is in its very early stages. So that impact, that potential impact on our import gas dependency isn't yet clear. And regardless of the precise level of imports, wholesale oil and gas prices in the UK will very largely be set by international markets. And that in turn can have a very significant impact on economic growth and bills. We're also dependent on international markets for the investment we need. It has been estimated that we require some £110 billion worth of investment by 2020 in the electricity sector alone, both to replace outdated infrastructure and to diversify our system towards more low-carbon sources. This brings huge opportunities with it for businesses, for jobs, and for economic growth. Analysis of the global energy outlook and recent events continues to underscore the importance of our policy responses to the key risks to our energy imports and investment needs. And those can be brigaded together under 5 elements. First, we need to promote low-carbon technologies and energy efficiency to restrain rising oil and gas demand. Based on its new policies scenario, the International Energy Agency estimates a 35% increase in energy demand from 2010 to 2035. Low-carbon energy sources will not expand sufficiently swiftly to displace fossil fuel growth, and oil demand is predicted to be 14% higher in 2035 and gas demand 50% higher. That has serious consequences for both energy security and for climate change. That scenario draws on policies which governments have committed to deliver, and of course there is more time for action to be taken. Restraining global energy demand will not only mitigate climate change, it will reduce the extent of price rises, just as domestic energy and transport policies can reduce our exposure to them. In both cases, that would reduce risks to economic growth and protect our households and businesses from increasing energy bills. Routes to achieving these ends include securing policy commitments, for example, seeking to remove fossil fuel subsidies which encourage wasteful consumption throughout the G20. Market distorting fossil fuel subsidies that encourage excess consumption globally amounted to some $500 billion in 2011, up almost 30% on the previous year. Sharing expertise, for example, working through the International Renewable Energy Agency and other international bodies to support developing countries moving to a sustainable low-carbon energy system, and providing finance, including through our International Climate Fund. Second, we need to encourage investment in oil and gas production. That's quite consistent with our climate change goals. Even under the IEA's 450 scenario, the world will be consuming some 79 million barrels of oil a day in 2035, compared to 87 million barrels a day in 2011. Over the same time, production from existing sources of conventional crude will have declined from around 65 million barrels a day to 26 million barrels a day. So new sources of oil will be needed to make up that difference. Global gas demand actually rises by 2035, even under the IEA's 450 scenario. However, we can't assume that the necessary investment will flow of its own accord. Many of the countries with the most significant fossil fuel resources have difficult investment climates, and the uncertain economic environment is a further barrier. In addition, further work is required on the safe and sustainable exploitation of unconventional gas and unconventional oil in order to maximize global production. Unconventional gas and oil is expected to account for almost half the increase in global gas production between 2011 and 2035, and here we can look to the United States experience of the shale gas revolution for key lessons to be learned. Third, we need to ensure reliable energy supplies, in particular encouraging greater liberalisation of energy markets and strengthen trading links and infrastructure. There has been progress on new supply routes, for example on the Southern Corridor, and better functioning of EU gas markets. Nevertheless, we remain today a very long way from a fully liberalised global energy market, especially for gas. And recent events in North Africa and Iran remind us that even in the largely globalised oil market, secure supplies are far from guaranteed. Fourth, we need to work to enhance energy price stability. This last year has witnessed considerable energy price volatility, with oil prices fluctuating between $89 US dollars and $127 US dollars, and gas prices fluctuating between 51 and 99 pence per therm. Our own Office for Budget Responsibility suggests that for an annual 10% increase in oil prices, GDP might reduce by 0.1% in the first year of the oil price shock. We should continue to promote our longer-term supply-side levers, notably increased market transparency, shared analysis of energy and financial markets, and enhanced producer-consumer dialogue, including through the International Energy Forum. However, we also need to recognise that all that work will only be effective if we also succeed in restraining demand. Fifth and finally, we must work harder to secure international inward investment in our own energy infrastructure. The challenge here is to ensure that our policy design delivers sufficiently attractive terms for investors while remaining affordable for our consumers. However, that of course is made more difficult by the global economic climate and strong competition for financial resources. This in turn raises risks of undermining our energy security, restricting growth, and then us missing our energy climate goals. There is an important international dimension in ensuring that our very significant investment opportunities are known, are understood, and are appreciated by potential investors. Our reforms to the electricity market will provide investors with greater revenue visibility, combined with greater certainty on the returns that they can expect. We are also looking at ways of incentivising shale gas exploitation in the UK by looking at reforms to the tax regime. In conclusion, these priority policy responses are, of course, not ones that we can deliver here on our own. Our bilateral relationships are key, as are also our relationships with multilateral institutions. To take just a few examples, the G20 and the G8 provide the top-level political support and call on other bodies to act. The International Energy Agency provides the data and analysis and can help promote energy security and low-carbon energy. The International Energy Forum has the core function of facilitating dialogue between the energy producers and consumer clubs, OPEC and the IEA, as well as the non-aligned countries. And there are several other organisations that have their own niches in scaling up and accelerating low-carbon deployment, including the Clean Energy Ministerial and the International Renewable Energy Agency. We should also recognise, and here I come back to the role of the Centre, the important role that can be played by think tanks and academic institutions with independent evidence and policy analysis that runs through the policy debates on how to ensure international energy security. And I have no doubt that Columbia University's Centre on Global Energy Policy will go on to make important contributions in this regard. And with that, I wish Jason and his colleagues all the very best. Thank you.